Joe, I suppose considering how much time was lost in this test match, it was an achievement for any team to get into a winning position. But sitting here now, does it feel in some ways like a missed opportunity? Do you feel you did everything you could to win the game?
Yeah, I think we did. I really do. I thought that we threw everything at them there. Gave ourselves a good amount of overs to try and create things, and sometimes you need absolutely everything to go for you. Might look back at the odd missed opportunity, but all in all, it was a fantastic effort. You know, from start of the day, that partnership between Joss and Ben in the up to lunch, and then the way they went through the gears, Ben in particular, was brilliant. So to get us to that score, we knew that it was going to be very difficult for Australia to get any sort of result out of the game, and bowlers put in a real good shift. And credit to Australia, they managed to hang on.
So the series stays at 1-0, but with Jofra Archer now involved, the whole dynamic has changed, hasn't it, Joe?
It seems so. He's coming in and he's really has made a massive impact. Added a different dynamic to our bowling group, and I think has given Australia something different to think about. So it's really pleasing to see someone come in on Test debut and really shake up things, and live up to the hype, if you like. Even some of the hype that he put on himself, I think. It's really pleasing to see, and it makes for very interesting last 3 games.
And just finally from me, I think it's very important with concussion, whatever sport it is, that in some ways it's taken out of the players' hands, because every player will want to play. But are you planning and expecting that Steve Smith will be playing in the next test, or do you think about that?
Yeah, that was a horrible moment. You're always trying to find different ways of getting players like Steve out. You never want to see anyone get hurt, and I couldn't believe that he managed to come back out and play. He's obviously desperate to do well for Australia and for his teammates. And just all of us in the dressing room, we just want to wish him a speedy recovery. It's not a nice moment. You never want to see someone go down hurt. So we'll plan for him to be ready to play, and have to keep trying to find ways to get him out.
We'll do Dean at the back. Pass the mic behind you, Charlotte.
You talk a bit about Jofra obviously giving Australia something different to think about. Does it give you something good to think about in terms of the way that you can use him and what it might do for your team going into Headingley?
Yeah, it does. As I say, he makes things happen when not many others in world cricket can. He's got such a unique sort of action and way of bowling, and obviously natural pace, which is always going to be in the game on any surface. So when you've got that and the skill of the other guys around it, it makes for a tasty combination. And I think that's one of the reasons why felt we were always in the game tonight, and always felt we could get a result right to the end there. So he's obviously worked very hard and had quite a big workload this week, and make sure he does everything right to be 100% ready to go at Headingley.
And just, I guess, in the same way that he does what he does it give a confidence as well to other players around him? When the way Ben Stokes as well played in this game, does that give the other players something to feed off that you can take the momentum forward?
Yeah, at the start of the week, wanted a big response from the group, and I think we've definitely done that. Felt like we put them under huge amounts of pressure throughout the whole game. Of course, you always expect Australia to fight back, and whenever we got on top, they managed to find a way to get themselves back into the game until today. And it was really pleasing to see us really drive for the win from a position which was quite difficult with the amount of cricket we lost due to the weather. For us to be in with a sniff with 10 overs to go still was, I suppose, shows how much of the cricket we played, if you like, and shows how much we're in this series.
Joe over here. Jack Leach came into this game without having played too much cricket, or certainly not bowled very much since the Ireland Test. How did you feel he went? You must have been delighted to get that level of control.
Yeah, I thought he bowled very well. In that first innings, pretty much went 1 and a bit and over, whatever it was. Took a wicket and did manage to keep it nice and tight whilst we were attacking with Jofra at the other end. And then in the second innings came more to the fore with as an aggressive option. So it's great to see him come in and make such an impact in a shortened game like that, you don't normally see spinners within the first 3 days of a game or have as much of an impact, even though it did spin more than you might think it might. But still, I thought he bowled brilliantly.
Chris Stocks.
Joe, you were part of the England team on that Ashes tour in 2013-14 when you were all kind of caught on the hop by Mitchell Johnson at the start of that series, and it was obviously extremely tough to face a fast bowler at the peak of his powers. Do you feel that in this match Jofra's had a similar effect on Australia?
Potentially. I think one thing we'll do is make them think about how they're going to, they have to think quite clearly about where they're going to combat, how he's going to come at them. It's always nice when you stood at slip and not batting against it. But yeah, it's different. It's very different to the other options that we've had previously and have in this team. It's a different skill, and you think on a different surface which might nibble and swing a little bit more. To add that into a quartet, it's a really big bonus for us, I think. Always feel like you've got something different to turn to.
Pass the microphone to Ian next year, and then we'll do Andrew.
Hi, Joe, just want to ask you about the catch. There seems to be a bit of contention about whether or not you caught it or not, and Manos didn't seem too happy when the video screen showed that he was out. What was kind of said between him and you and as he was leaving?
Said that caught it. You can feel your fingers underneath the ball. You look at slow-mos and they always look worse than they are. As a fielder, you know if your fingers are underneath the ball. Clearly felt that was the case. I'm an honest guy. I know I'm not going to try and cheat the game, regardless of the situation. And it's quite disappointing when it's slowed down and people start questioning your integrity. We play the game in a certain way, and that's the right way.
Andrew?
Joe, Jofra's obviously got a massive appetite for hard work, but obviously 44 overs is a big workload with a turnaround only 3 days away. I mean, from the spells you used him in so many different varieties as well, do you think you've got a better idea now of maybe how best to use him, and also, I guess, how best to use the other guys who, for instance, Chris Wokeson seemed to get an awful lot of use at the sharp end of the match today. I mean, have you got so many options with Jofra that you perhaps need to narrow them down a bit?
I think it'll take time. It is a slightly different dynamic. It's something new to work with, and I think today was very unusual circumstances. So I think it will be different at Headingley. It will be different in the future as well, and I think you've got to play the situation in front of you. And we went a certain way today, which we might go different in the future.
Just look from here, and we'll do Dan and Robin.
Joe, Chris Woke said yesterday that the amount of guys that were being hit in this test, particularly bodies, heads, whatever, was surprising. Do you get the sense that this test there was a lot of that going on, and it will be a theme throughout the series given both attacks?
I think this wicket made it very difficult to play. In particular, it was quite inconsistent in terms of the pace and the bounce, quite difficult to get under the ball. So you're always trying to find the best way of going about playing it. I think that's probably had a big impact on it, and I think because of it, you might see a little bit more of it throughout. I think we always try and prepare for absolutely everything Australia might throw at us, and that's certainly something we'll make sure we're ready to go with at Headingley.
Joe, obviously something that happened today had never happened before in terms of a concussion sub coming in, and Marnus obviously had a pretty big impact on the way the afternoon played out. Was that, I suppose, is it something that you have any thoughts about in terms of what the regulations are now, or just part of Test cricket now?
It looks like it's here to stay. I think most importantly, it gives the doctors and everyone that needs to an opportunity to assess someone and make sure they're absolutely fine, and try not affect the game too much. As with these things, it generally takes time to work out if it's going to be a real addition to the the game or not. It's a difficult one. If someone breaks their arm and can't compete, is that the same? And it's hard to draw a line somewhere. It's obviously, I think it's good. I'll leave it at that.
And just one
on
Tim Payne. Obviously, a couple of times in this series, he's been gotten out on the hook. Like, is it? And obviously, you'd moved Joe in a little bit the previous over. Were you trying to convince him to maybe try and get it over it?
I think you're always trying to mess around with things, make different, or try and... on that wicket, it was very difficult, as I said, to get underneath the ball into two short legs, man around the corner. Stand up and play it doesn't seem like a great option. He's well night man now. You don't really want to let it hit you. Yeah, he's trying to play with the mind and see what different things. I wanted to keep head on strike as well at the other end for the spinner to bowl into the rough, and it ended up working out quite nicely. But we've seen him get out like that a couple of times, especially against us. So I think he might get a few more.
Just on your catch, do you think is there scope for it to be just trusting the fielder's word in those sort of cases where it's always going to be inconclusive? Is it something you'd like to have a chat with Tim about?
I think with the impact that the TV has now, and DRS and everything, a lot more does go upstairs, and it happens with catches as well. As it's not going to change. It's going to be that way. It would be nice if there was a little bit more of that, but it is what it is. It's not going to be any different moving forward. So I might as well just get on with it.
All right, and then we'll finish with Stefan.
Joe, just about Jofra Archer's bowling action, like the times he did hit batsmen, it almost looked like they couldn't pick the bouncer, and often they were like rushed into it. Of course, there's a lot of pace, but having faced him in the nets, and I'm sure you've faced him in matches, is it a difficult action? Is it one of those that it takes time to get used to?
I just think that because of the nature of it, at times it can feel a little bit too paced, and he has the ability to crank it up every now and again, go up and down the gears, which when you don't have to sprint in and get yourself really ready for it as a batter, it can make it quite difficult. It's such a good skill, such a natural skill, and it's worked brilliantly for him throughout his short international career so far, and hopefully it can continue.
Stefan, last one.
Joe, at Edgbaston, it seemed like you guys had all the problems. Jimmy's injury, Steve Smith getting all the runs, a few other things. Not just through what Jofra's done here this week, but collectively, do you feel like you've reversed the momentum of this series and given Australia all the problems?
Things change quickly in sport, and it's just nice for us to be in a good place going into Headingley. We've still got a lot of, win at least 2 games, but it was important we gave a really good response this week, and it puts us in a really good place going into that game. So really pleased with how we managed to take as much as we could from such a shortened game, and hopefully we can get it to 1-1 at Headingley.